we say happiness, but the idea that comes to mind may be something different. Yeah, so when in this context of, let's say, today's episode, when we say happiness, like for myself, what I'm talking about is a quiet kind of sense, the silent, quiet sense of peace, and it's just a knowing that things are okay, and in the moment, there's no panic or strong mental suffering or that kind of worry, anxiety. So that's what I mean by happiness. Because we're talking about the other kind of happiness, which is like ecstasy, maybe like super high, the kind of ultra excitement and things like that. So that is fine. That has its place. But for those kind of things, there's, the ups comes with the downs. So just like when we take caffeine, or alcohol, or some people trying to take drugs or trying to self-medicate. So every time that chasing that high always comes with a low. So there's always both ends of the spectrum. So for today, I won't be talking about that kind of happiness, as per se. So that's the important part that I first wanted to address. So today, when we spoke about this particular topic of happiness, we said, how do you actually get that unconditional happiness, which is a little bit closer to what I just mentioned, which is that silent kind of knowing. So it's like a silent, subtle kind of joy and satisfaction, and just a knowing that things are okay. So in the moment, life still goes up and down, but there's just a kind of quiet ground where you feel, yes, things may change, for the better temporarily or for the worse, but still everything is okay. So that kind of grounding, it's more like a level-headed kind of feeling for myself personally. So when we talk about unconditional happiness, quite simply, to me, it's like we just need to remove the conditions. So what do I mean? So I have some friends, I know of some people, especially, okay, let's say I just know some people, okay, so guys and girls, who, when after a certain age, they have this kind of quiet anxiety or discomfort. So they're wondering, am I going to find someone suitable for me, who I can see a long-term potential with, and we can settle down, build a family, something like that. So when they're at that stage, there tends to be this kind of worry. And every day they go out, so even the career is going well, family life is good, health is good, but there's still this kind of anxiety, boiling under the surface that says, hey, am I going to find my spouse or my future partner, who I want to enjoy life with? Am I going to be lonely? Am I going to be left on the shelf, so to speak? So that straight away creates a condition. But yet, I witness in these friends, when we go out to watch a movie, let's say a comedy, during the actual movie, they're very happy. So it can be laughing and enjoying the movie, we'll be like sharing popcorn, and they're fine, they're just like everybody else. But sometimes when we leave the cinema, so there are some of us who are in couples, and then maybe that person is alone, for example. So once they leave the cinema, after a while you can start to see a small shift. It's almost as if there's a small switch in the head where they leave the cinema theater and then they start seeing their friends with their partners, and they kind of remember to be unhappy. So I'm imagining it to be something like this. So they go out after having a nice laugh and a good experience. So there's this thought that comes, and they look happy together. Say, what happened to my partner? And like, hey, do I see anyone now that I feel in the future there may be a chance of us getting together? So if there's no such person, then they'll suddenly compare, and then they'll remember to be unhappy. And when that kicks in, the whole atmosphere changes. And normally they won't say it out loud. They won't say that, hey, I remember this, or they won't even show that they're suddenly unhappy. But you can sense it. Even having meals, just a little bit quieter, and things start to change. And usually after that, there may be a small counseling session, where other friends encourage them, hey, don't worry, things will turn out at the right time, you'll meet the right person, etc. So which means that we actually have to remind ourselves to be unhappy, which is a kind of conditional happiness. So at the very least, I see when we slowly remove the conditions, it's not like a one shot, like some people, they go through a huge change in their life, and then all at once there's a big shift. And so it may be something happen and they tell themselves, from today onwards, I won't care about what somebody else thinks about me. And suddenly all their relationships change. They stop having anxiety. Or am I beautiful? Did I dress well today? How am I conducting myself? Suddenly they are just comfortable being themselves. So that is possible. However, if that hasn't happened for us, of course we can't be waiting for that to happen. Because you do not know whether it will come and when it's going to happen. So the slower step by step, which I've practiced on myself, and I've shared with others as well, is the step of removing these conditions as they arise, one by one. So as all the conditions are slowly removed, you'll find that one day you are in that unconditional, maybe I'll call it okayness. And so that's just, you're unconditionally okay. When you wake up in the morning, you're okay. So as long as all those unhappy thoughts and beliefs are removed one by one, the peace will start to grow, and increase day by day. So that's a straightforward way. And if I'll share 3 tips that I feel can help you get to that. So the first is just a silent knowing that everything will turn out all right for you individually. So what I mean by that is the route that we go and everything is different. And so we can't say for sure, but everything that is happening at the moment is meant to happen. So whether we believe in God, or life, or science, or cause and effect, or intelligence, or me creating my own life, the truth is that is meant to happen because it is happening at the moment. So if we resist that, it's 100% surefire way to be unhappy, and for sure you immediately go into a downward spiral of suffering. So that also does not mean that we cannot change things. Because that's the second point, which is change things daringly, and powerfully. Because recently one of our latest members actually asked me about happiness. So if there's this unconditional joy and happiness, does that mean that I cannot go for my sales targets or my better career, or progress for my family or living standards? So it does not mean that. So we can still go ahead, take the steps that we've been shown in our lives that can make our standard of living better, or help people or bring us more joy. So it's fine to go ahead and do that. Just that we don't have that kind of deep attachment to it, where I have a goal and today if I don't get that sales target, everything is finished. My meal with my family is smashed. I'm unhappy. I have no time to speak to my kids, my spouse, etc. And so we still go for it, but without having to have that kind of strong emotion. So we still do our best, but we do it from this place of freedom. And like what I shared earlier, is like this small kind of okayness. So it's that silent, okay place where you know that you've done your best, and what happens will happen, and we cannot control everything. So be okay with that and see that it's all in the process. And then the final thing that I'll say is to just relax a little bit. So it doesn't have to, change is something that we are impatient for generally. So we want to change it now and as fast as we can. But sometimes there's a season to things, and no matter how you try and force it, like a baby still takes around 9 months, to be matured and ready to be born into this world. So similarly, where we may be at the stage where something is still needed before we are ready for the next step. So be it starting a business, or entering into the relationship. So there's something there where if you just relax a little bit more, somehow you'll be able to appreciate things. You can start to see that we may be missing a lot of things, by not being present here and now. And so if let's say the journey is 5 years, so it's 5 years of suffering, versus if I'm present here, I'm paying attention to each step. I'm giving thanks for the small things in my life that's going well, for food on the table, for shelter, for everything that's been given, my breath, ability to think, ability to plan my life, etc. So then this 5 years is in gratitude. And so while progressing, you are still taking time to give thanks, still having a moment to be with the family, to do the things you love, to have the engagement and the happiness and the joy. So these 5 years will be, in my opinion, better spent versus just 5 years of general anxiety and impatience and just striving to get to the next